Hello and welcome back to Coleslaw of My Consciousness. So today I had another review in mind that I wanted to do. This time, however, it's not a book review. I had a movie in mind, but I had some writing related things that I wanted to talk about, so I figured it still qualified. So anyways, the movie in question is called Jellyfish Eyes, or at least that's the translation for the title that I got. It's a Japanese film. And the reason I say that, the translation I got as the title, is like the character in it gets called like Jellyfish Boy, I think is technically the translation, so I wonder if it's like a mistranslation in the title. Not that it's a super huge deal, it's just one of those things you'll come across, but that's kind of what's going on there. But anyways, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. So, overall, I did find this to be a pretty charming little movie. Definitely more of a kid-style film, but there's nothing wrong with that. So, let's kind of get into some of the things that I wanted to talk about with it. Other than the title, there were kind of some translation issues that I had with it that I was a little confused by. Usually there will be translation issues, it seems like, just because no translation will ever be perfect. But for example, there's a big monster thing at the end. Spoilers, I guess. I don't know how popular this movie would be though, so we're carrying on. There's a big monster that appears at the end that the characters just abruptly start calling Oval. There was no hint that this character was going to be there at any point. It just was all of a sudden this energy thing that they'd been doing turned into this giant monster, and they decided it was called Oval. I have no idea where that name comes from. It's almost like perhaps in like an earlier version of the script, the creature had been named, and then they knew that it was going to be a creature or something in an earlier version, and it just didn't make it to this point, and then the oval part still stuck. I don't know. It was just a little silly, one of those tiny little things. But yeah. Also, one other thing that kind of bothered me was their use of the term negative energy. Its kind of main overarching plot is they're collecting this energy and trying to use it to take over / change the world somehow. And they keep calling it negative energy, which I kind of get. They do seem to be trying to make people more angry, perhaps, or to fight a lot. They give kids these little like Pokemon type creatures that they can power with their cell phones that seem to run a little bit on this negative energy, but at the same time it didn't really quite make sense. Yes, they were encouraging the kids to like fight with the monsters, kind of like a Pokemon type style thing, but at the same time there were characters like the main girl in the story who our main character becomes friends with, and she doesn't fight with hers at all. And she doesn't seem like the type of person who ever would have fought with hers, but it was still just kind of a blanket. We're giving it to all the kids, and they'll all fight, and there will be all this negative energy, and I didn't really get how they were collecting it, and it just didn't make sense to me as a complete turn. But yeah. Anyways, so onto a few non-translation-y type related things that actually deal with more like the plot and what was going on within the story. So, the creatures that I talked about before all have that little like phone device that the kids summon them with. Except for the main character. He finds one of these creatures without a device. But based on how all the other ones work and the fact that the people who created the monsters and the devices basically handed them out to the children in the town, I don't know how Kurage-bo, who's the main character's little monster, exists without one of those devices. And towards the end, his uncle who works for that company does give him a device to help power Kurage-bo, I think. But it's not really stated if that was always there, and Kurage-bo just got loose somehow and was going without being super powered by device, or how that worked, and that was a little confusing and strange, but didn't overall take too much away from the story. It was still really cute and fun. Just one of those things that I was like, that could have been written in a little better explanation of what was going on. Also, that uncle that we were just barely talking about, who at the end does give him a device and all that, and works for the company and whatnot. At one point, he finds out that his nephew has this monster and tells the company and is like, I didn't want to just take his monster away, but I knew it could be dangerous for him to have this monster. And then the company basically like brainwashes him to go kill himself because they're like, oh, you're interfering with our plans at this point. And I was just like, what? We just killed the uncle? But then, even stranger than the killing the uncle, he comes back and is not actually dead. And there's like a twin of him and stuff too. And I don't know if the one who jumped off the building was also just another one of those, but then why all the like scenes of them basically seeming to be like forcing him into their subservience with some sort of serum and stuff that made him go jump off the building. I don't get it. Well, why even bother with it, you know? And if you're going to do that, I feel like there could have, I don't know. And the fact that they gave it ends up being an evil version of the uncle. That's the second form that goes and fights and stuff with the nephew. And he's like, what is going on, uncle? You're supposed to be dead. Why are you fighting me? All that kind of thing. But it seems like, from a writing standpoint and a character impact standpoint, it would be more powerful not to have shown any of the suicide stuff and to have just jumped to all of a sudden his uncle seems like he's turned evil and is trying to kill him. But maybe that's just me. That's how I would have written it. Skip all the confusing suicide stuff and just have, oh, it's a apparent evil uncle, and then be like, oh wait, the actual uncle was tied up and they have this brainwashy version. You know, things like that. Okay, so just a couple more things. As I've kind of talked about, they have these little monster creatures, and our main character at the beginning of the story, he's just barely moved into this town with his mom. They're like unpacking boxes and she runs to the store, and then he finds this creature, this little silly CGI looking creature. They're kind of adorable, kind of Pokemon-esque on a lot of aspects. But anyways, he finds this little creature and then he hides it from his mom. This is one of my biggest writing peeves. I don't know why there can't be stories where kids will just trust their parents and be like, I found this really cool thing and I just need someone to talk to about it, you know, instead of like keeping it private. And I mean, maybe from a story aspect, since you're writing to kids essentially in your story, it makes sense to be like, oh, it gives the kid more power to be like, I have this cool secret from everyone, especially my parents, kind of a thing. But fiction is also in a lot of ways used as a teaching tool, and I don't know why it can't teach that, hey, you find this cool thing, it's good to have a good relationship with your parents. Why not talk to your parents about this cool thing that you found? I don't know, just one of my big peeves. I don't like it when that happens, and that's all I have to say. One of my least favorite story things that happens. I still love kids stuff. I'll still read it, I'll still watch it, I might even write some of it, but just one of those peeves that I'm like, just once write a story where the kid actually tells their parent about these things. Because it's not like, in this case, our main character has a bad relationship with his mom. They're mourning a little bit because his dad died fairly recently, and that's part of what triggered them moving. But he still has a good relationship with her, and if you have a good relationship with your parent in particular, it just seems silly to me that you wouldn't be like, hey, I found this strange thing. Do you want to talk about it with me? Do you want to see this cool thing? Can we keep it as a pet even, kind of a thing, you know? I just don't get it. So that's just one of the things that will always bother me, even if I still enjoy the story otherwise. It bothers me. I will admit that's one of my writing peeves. So maybe someday I'll end up succumbing to it and finally truly understand why it's used, but at this point I don't get it and I don't like it. But yeah, so I mean that pretty much covers most of the stuff that I wanted to say about this, especially since I wanted to talk about like the writing aspects. There's one final thing that we can mention briefly. As I mentioned just a little bit ago, our main character's father has just died, or at least fairly recently has died, and one of the ongoing threads in the story is that he keeps dreaming about his father. And I don't know if it's implying this is how he actually died or if it just relates to other things in the plot, but he's like at a beach type place with his dad, and he keeps seeing this huge like tsunami type wave coming, and it's like this nightmare that his dad's gonna die in that wave. And I just felt like the story never had any conclusion to that. He never really settled his grief, which I know to some degree. Grief will never be settled. You will always miss the people that you lose. But for having this big element, plus the negative energy thing that they're trying to collect, it would have made so much more sense if like his grief and that negative energy went into the plot more somehow. And maybe even if the creature oval, instead of just being some weird random monster, since a lot of the negative energy for him comes from our main character, if it looked like his father. I don't know. Just my thoughts. Alright, and one final thought I think with Jellyfish Eyes. So, I've mentioned that there's this giant monster that comes up at the end and that they have to defeat it, and that was created through like negative energy and such. Part of how they end up defeating it is they have one member of their party who is a very good little hacker. He actually hacked his little monster and turned it into a video game. So they're like, oh, you did this. Can you find the weakness of the big monster for us? Kind of a thing. Anyways, I'm fine with that. I think that's kind of a cool way to be like, hey, hackers are cool, video games are cool, whatever, that part doesn't bother me. However, at the end, after they've defeated the monster, they found his weakness, they destroyed Oval. Then, all the kids are sad because as part of destroying Oval, it took all of their little monster creatures to destroy it, and they all just disappear, basically. And then they're all really sad and having this grieving moment, which was pretty powerful to be like, we had to sacrifice our dear little friends in order to, accomplish this thing. And then our hacker walks up and he's like, this isn't the time to be mourning, you're mourning too soon. And he undoes something computer-wise and brings back the friends. Which, yes, I guess is a happier ending, especially for a kid's film. But how did he know that wouldn't then bring the monster back, the big oval back, since he was created from all this negative energy and all of that, and essentially all of what they did with the monsters led up to him being created. So how did they know that he won't just come back now? It would have been so much more powerful if the grief of the children had just been a permanent thing. Both like from a storytelling standpoint, I think that they had a real consequence, but that they learned and grew from it. But then also that, you're not just bringing this weird hole of, but it could have brought the monster back too, right? If you're just breaking into the computer program and resetting some creatures, can that also potentially reset the big creature that you just destroyed that you don't want to come back? I don't get it, but that's okay. So I think that covers everything that I wanted to say with Jellyfish Eyes. So there's my brief little review, mostly focusing on writing aspects that I either would have changed or didn't understand, peeves, all that. If you'd like me doing a review of a movie instead of books, or as well as books, but still focusing on writing aspects, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to do more of these. It was just this particular one that struck me as one that I thought would be good for this. So yeah, and maybe in future Coleslaw we'll add more movies if I focus on the writing. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think that's everything for today. This is the Umlaut Herper signing out.